Greetings and welcome to the continuation of I'm Not a Serial Killer, I Swear. The past few days have been insane for me, in more ways than one. Joseph finally got back in touch with me, but unfortunately, the links in the email I sent did not work for him, which makes sense if he's in an alternate reality. So ultimately, I had to copy and paste from the sites and actually film myself walking through work. That seemed to do the trick, and upon receipt of the follow-up email, Joseph admitted that I was indeed in another universe. Having him actually confirm it filled my heart with terror. I was honestly just hoping that I had gone insane, and truthfully, a padded room would be so much more preferable compared to the sheer horror of my past few days. Of course, after the initial concession from Joseph came a flurry of questions, some of which I answered. Others though had me stumped. I began to realize that as similar as our universes were, they were vastly different in many ways. The truly chilling part was that whereas here we have a plethora of serial killers, mass murderers, and generally awful shit play out on a daily basis, in his world there is much less, which in turn means that when something disturbing happens, it is very big news. Hence how my doppelganger is the most infamous man in the world over there. After a few hours of 20 million questions, I reluctantly decided to call it a night. I showered and laid in my bed wide awake before slumber finally had me in its grasp. I had yet another creepy and terrifying dream. It was another pseudo-memory, only this time I wasn't 12. It was the summer of my junior year, and I had decided to drive across the country, filming different ghost towns. It was an art project for school, but more importantly, it was an excuse to get as far away from my parents and pending divorce as possible. In this dream, I was about 40 miles outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. It was late at night, and the only thing I could find between the static of the radio was an oldies station. Lead Belly was belting out, asking where did this girl sleep last night, as my headlights came across a hitchhiker standing at the edge of the long straight road. It was here that the dream differed from what happened in my reality. In my reality, I drove past the man standing with his thumb out, knowing how dangerous a stranger on a lonesome dark road could be. But in the dream, I pull over and invite him into the car. The man throws a bag into the back seat and then hops up front. He looks over, holds out his hand, and introduces himself. "Thanks for stopping, man. Name's Leroy." I smile, shake his hand, and offer to take him to Sioux City, which was my next stop. Lead Belly finished his soulful singing, and the dulcet sound of Cream playing Sunshine of Your Love came on next. Leroy turned up the volume while yelling, "Man, I love Clapton. He's a god. Wanna smoke some grass?" He asks, holding out a rather large joint. I grab the joint from him and take a big long inhale. The acrid smoke fills my lungs, slightly burning. This is an odd, unknown sensation to me, as I have never partook in any recreational drugs in my life. I exhale a huge cloud of smoke and pass the joint back to Leroy. We continue down the road, taking turns smoking until the joint is so small it burns my fingers. Instinctively, I drop it into the seat, and Leroy scrambles to pick it back up. "Sorry man, I don't have any roach clips," he said as he snuffed out what little was left. "Thanks again for picking me up, man. Most folks are just too wary about hitchhikers these days, with all these serial killers and whatnot in the news." I just nod in agreement when suddenly, I hear a loud pop, and the steering wheel jerks to the right. My tire had a blowout, so I pulled over to the side of the road to change it. Both Leroy and I stepped out of the vehicle. I popped the trunk and handed him my jack and tire iron. He started to jack the car up as I fumbled for the spare. I plopped the old spare tire onto the ground with a thunk as Leroy finally got the car at an appropriate height. "Hey man, hand me the tire iron, will ya?" he said over his shoulder. I could feel this cold, yet pleasant feeling start at the base of my skull as I walked over and picked up the tire iron off the ground. Leroy was sitting down on the ground facing the tire. His right arm was extended with his hand open, waiting to be handed the tool. Just like the previous dream, I knew what I was doing, but I couldn't stop myself. I swung backwards over my head with the tire iron and brought it down in one swift motion. The cold metal of the tool connected with Leroy's head, and a sickening crunch echoed in my head as metal collided with flesh and bone. Blood splattered down onto my face and ran down it in warm streams as I swung again and again. Then, after several more hits, the crunch sound had deflated into more of a squishy thud, like a baseball bat striking a bowl of mashed potatoes. Blood and brain matter oozed from the crushed remains of Leroy's head. I pushed his body out of the way and finished changing my tire. After I was done, I rolled the corpse into a ditch and drove away. That cold feeling at the base of my skull had transformed into a warm hug that enveloped my entire body. Yet my mind was racing with thoughts. A part of me was appalled at my actions, the part that was just a passenger on this crazy ride. To be honest though, a part of me thoroughly enjoyed it, and what scares me the most is I'm not sure whether that part was dream me or the real me. I awoke drenched in sweat yet again. I walked to the bathroom in the dark, turned on the light, and froze in terror for a moment, as I could see the blood splattered across my face in the mirror. I closed my eyes tight, and when I reopened them, my face was clean. My imagination was definitely running wild. I decided I had enough sleep for one night, and was going to just stay up. I'm not sure what the hell is going on, and I don't know how much worse it's going to get. All I know is I'm not a serial killer. I think. Oh wow, I had a thought this might go this direction. What if he's merging with his counterpart in the alternate universe? What if he actually is becoming a serial killer? But I know one thing I care most about in this world is being in control of my own actions. This really scares me, maybe more than most would be scared. I just hate the idea of losing control of my actions. It's why I also don't take any drugs. I just want to be in control of who I am. And you are your actions, right? Yeah. Well, I'm excited to find out what happens next. As always, leave a comment if you find something interesting. And if you like the video, like the video.